On Clear Your Clutter Inside and Out, we're talking about your legacy. How would you like to be remembered by family, friends, colleagues, the community? What family history is it important for you to share? Are there certain ways you choose to be memorialized? Learn about planning your legacy as we finish our month focusing on going with grace.
Do you control your clutter, or does your clutter control you? On Clear Your Clutter Inside and Out, we'll teach you awareness as well as action steps to create change in your life. Come on, let's get started.
Today's episode was inspired because I have personally been thinking a lot about this. I have seen a couple of people, I'm 50 at my age, die. I'm 50, but it's still, I guess sometimes, especially if there's someone you've known when you were a child, like, what do you mean they're too young to die? I really want to write a funny obituary. That's really important to me. But as I've been contemplating that and thinking, what's important for me to leave behind as a legacy? And, again, we're all important. Every single person is important. My great-grandfather was a janitor, and he left a legacy of a phenomenal work ethic to my mother, who passed that along to me. That's one example. I get frustrated because I feel like in our 15-minute of fame society, we think we have to be really wealthy or be really famous, be quote-unquote more important to live a legacy, and that's not true. We are all important. You are important. And so I really suggest you consider this. This was inspired also by a conversation having with my Aunt Sue, who, shout out, thank you, Aunt Sue Farnsworth, who was an estate attorney and shared with me some stories over the years. And it made me realize, this is pretty important. And this is something that I think whether or not we realize it, and maybe as I go over the categories, you're like, oh yeah, I hadn't thought about this. Again, this is not comprehensive. This is a starting point. I want to start to get you contemplating and moving forward and getting some of these things accomplished. So here are a couple categories of items that you might want to think about. Personal history. What do you want people to know? Are there certain things about your life that's important for your family to know? Your community? What would you like people to know? If you've been a long-time listener to the podcast, and I did share this interview, I did this interview with Sybil Rhodes, who was like a second mother to me ages ago. Well, Sybil lived an incredible life, and she ended up writing a book about someone that she knew, which I thought was really great because she wanted to share that and tell someone else's life story. One of the things I enjoyed most about Sybil is learning about her life. For example, her father was a sharecropper, and Sybil was in her 80s when she died 5-6 years ago. And it's kind of incredible to me if you think about, wow, someone was living as a sharecropper for a father. And she shared a lot of her personal history, and that was something that was important to her. So what is it important? And maybe you want to share certain items in your obituary. I've mentioned I want mine to be really funny. I want to talk about my passion about writing and supporting people and cats. It's something that, even if it's only read by a few people, it's important to me. What about your values? This, again, is something you maybe want to pass along to your employees as well as your family. What do you believe about work? About giving? Do you believe in tithing 10%? How about inheriting? If I remember correctly, Warren Buffett, all his children and grandchildren, I believe, got college paid for and a house, which really is a huge start if you think about it. But this guy's worth, what, billions? And he's not going to leave a bunch of money for his kids to blow. And I think I read somewhere that Bill Gates is doing something similarly, that he and his wife are maybe giving away 95%. I had to call Amazon getting the books created and talk to someone. I said, if I ever meet Jeff Bezos, I am going to ask for $1 billion. I would like, he has 37 billion or 36. I figure $1 billion, I could use it really efficiently. My goals would be to get pets spayed and neutered so we didn't have to euthanize, and to work on human trafficking. And I thought I could go a long way with $1 billion, but at 36, 37 billion, he's going to have all generations, you're even remotely related, taken care of. So do you want to just have a lot of wealth, or do you want to set up something like Warren Buffett? Or maybe you're planning on a very specific inheritance, and explain your reasoning behind that. What about the community? You're very active in the community. You might want to share, this is why I did so much for the community. This is what's important for me. This is what I hope our values as a community as we move forward. Time goes by, this is what I hope we concentrate on. Goals. Talk about your visions and hope for family, maybe humanity, for your business. What is it that you have strived for and that you would like to see continued? What's a legacy that you hope you're leaving? I would hope that by doing my business, I opened up people to living life more fully. I allowed them to accept death more. I helped them move forward in life. I helped them declutter their life. These are just a few of my goals and visions, and my hope and how I made a difference.
When you prepare for death, you can live your life fully. Where is all that information to your online assets, and would people know how to find it? What do you want people to remember about you? If you were to die suddenly, who would take care of your pets? Julie Coraccio can support you in end-of-life planning and organization. Visit reawakenyourbrilliance.com to learn more.
Creative projects. I have my YouTube videos, I have my podcasts, I have my books. If you have creative projects, do you want someone to inherit? Maybe you are a writer for a TV show and you'll get residuals. Who would you like to inherit that? Or maybe some of you have artistic pieces, such as painting or sculptures. Would you like that left to a museum or a school? When you create that, do you want to share the stories behind your works? This painting was inspired by my walk on the beach in Acadia National Park, Maine. Or this work represents rising above trauma. What are the stories behind it? Do you want to share any of that? What's important to you for your creative projects? Remember, if you don't make decisions, someone else is going to. And if you don't care, you're in good shape. But if you've made some creative projects, wouldn't you want to be a part in deciding what's going to happen to them? Again, I feel we transition. I really believe that we leave the physical body, but our soul still goes on. I've had too many experiences where I have felt the presence of a person and they are here, and I don't know how else to describe it. I can't describe it unless you've experienced it, but the personality is coming through and they are still around. Again, I believe when you leave your physical body, you're that spiritual being, so you left all the junk and ego behind of being a human. But again, you've done all this creativity. If it inspires others, why not make a plan for it? And again, the bigger picture, make it easier for your loved ones. Make them less stressed. Make them have less things to worry about. Family heirlooms. Perhaps you want to share the history. There is a clock, and I have to figure out the family who has it, but that I believe it was my great-grandfather or great-great-grandfather. The house burned down, and that was one item he saved. I need to ask about that, who has that somewhere. My grandmother, I remember telling the story. and I'll have to check in with my dad after I finish this podcast. But where's the clock? Why was that the one thing that they saved when the house burned down to the ground? I'm looking around my office. I probably would grab my computer before a clock. We actually have a big old clock. But that'd be fascinating to know what was important about that. What's the story behind it? Do you want specific people to receive certain items? Spell that out. If you have, say, you have a prized car collection, do you want to include instructions how to take care of them? This is what you need to do to maintain this. One of the things my grandmother did before she died was she did a couple things. She started to ask people what they wanted. So my aunt got something, then my dad, then my other aunt, then my mother, then my uncle, then my other uncle. She was very even Steven. She was an attorney as much as possible. And when she died, she also laid out instructions in her will that they were to draw straws, meaning my father and his sisters, draw straws, and then go in order 1, 2, 3, pick what you wanted, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Now, my parents, I'm fortunate in my family that there wasn't ever going to be a fist fight. But I mentioned in another podcast how my husband's grandmother specifically said, don't fight over this stuff. Yet she didn't leave instructions of how it was to be done, who got what, and they fought over all the stuff. I'm fortunate that that's not how my family is. They were really great. For instance, we didn't get to pick everything, but they made sure all the grandchildren had something special for my grandparents. That saved a lot of headache. It saved a lot of heartache. And it was fair, which was even better. So then no one had any bitter feelings. Although I do have to say a note, you know, you have a choice. I'm about keeping it real. If someone didn't treat you right, you feel free to say that. She would have been my great-great aunt and great aunt Susan in New York. And when she died, she was a single woman and she left, I don't know if it was money or material goods, but my grandfather and another cousin got the most because they always wrote thank you notes. And that was one of the determining factors for her. And so she let it be known, hey, you wrote a thank you note, you got more. That's your choice. And that would be a part of saying, you know what, this was an important value to me. And I hope maybe from this, you'll consider that as a value of yours. So again, it's whatever you want to do. Giving back. Maybe you want to create a foundation. Or how about a scholarship? Or you'd like to donate to a specific charity. If you do any of these things, do you have parameters or specific guidelines? For example, this money is to be used to help older pets get adopted. This scholarship is for a C student who worked really hard. This foundation will give to women's and children's causes. It's specifically broad-based. As long as women and children are benefiting, you can apply to the foundation. So as you're contemplating these different areas where you're making your mark, you're leaving your legacy, do you want to have certain things written or create something that's visual or an audio? For example, maybe you want to create a visual retrospective of all your art. Maybe you plan to leave it to a museum or a college, but you want to create a DVD with all your art that your loved ones can have. Or maybe you'd like to bring in an oral historian to write up a book about your life. Or maybe you want to create a podcast of your life. You aren't limited by anything. How is it what you'd like this information shared? You'll also want to think about and name your beneficiary or heirs, and you might have multiple ones because you might leave an heirloom to a niece and leave a work of art to a charity. Who are going to be your executors of all of this, or administrators? Maybe you want someone who is a scholar to put together your artwork, to create a retrospective or how it would go up in a museum. And you might have different people doing different things. Even though you have a power of attorney, you can specify how you'd like certain people to handle certain things. What's important to you? How do you want to be remembered? What's your legacy? Take actions from today's podcast. Consider what's most important for your legacy. Create a list of all you want to leave as your mark. How will you leave items? Visual, audio, or written? Determine who will be in charge of your requests and other items. Next month, we're talking about the holidays. Go out, clear your clutter to create the life you choose, deserve, and desire.
When you clear your clutter, you can share your gifts with the world. Sign up for our free newsletter at reawakenyourbrilliance.com. If you've enjoyed Clear Your Clutter Inside and Out, please rate, review, and share us.